They said they want to do the program this summer, so, yeah, so it'll be interesting. Yeah, well, yeah, yeah. So, I don't know how, they gotta confirm with him, but they said he was interested, so, yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, well, that's what I mean, it'll be more, but I'll have, but the non-scripted part is, she said it's kind of open dialogue. Might be sitting at a coffee shop or whatever. Oh, yeah, no, I don't know, yeah. Ready to go? Okay, for sure. Thank you. Okay, good evening. Good evening and welcome to council, Monday, April the 23rd, 2019. Call the meeting to order 7 p.m. As always, we just remind everybody in the audience as well as council to put their phones on silence mode or vibrate. Thank you. Um, as always, we share municipal safety share tips with the public, and this evening, Councillor Stone is going to give us an overview of the safety share.
As the weather starts to change, many homeowners start to think about spring cleaning. Here are some safety tips for spring cleaning. Household and pool chemicals, paints, poisons should be properly marked and stored under lock and key, away from children's reach. Dispose of any of them if they're leaking, expired, or just simply appear to be gone bad. When cleaning up hazardous chemicals, wear rubber gloves and follow the safety directions on the packaging. Never mix chemicals in the same container. If you don't know how to dispose of them, seek outside advice. Never put them into a trash or pour them down a drain. Make sure gasoline and cleaning fluids are well marked and stored in a cool, dry place away from the household, and keep out of reach of children and pets. Use only approved containers for gasoline storage. Never use gasoline to clean skin, clothes, auto parts, or floors. Clean up work areas. Put dangerous tools, adhesives, matches, and other work items away from children's reach. Check the barbecue for leaks and cracks, and be sure to store any propane tanks away from the house or garage. Remove all fire hazards, including stacks of rags, newspapers, and magazines. Pay special attention to spaces around furnaces, hot water tanks, fireplaces, space heaters, and dryers, as well as under the stairs.
Good. Thank you for them safety tips, and hopefully everybody adheres to some of those things. Okay. Any deletions to the agenda this evening? We do have one deletion under 11A report. Councillor Zingrah's report on library will be moved to the next board meeting, council meeting. Anything else? Okay. Hearing none, I do have a motion here. The council hereby accepts the agenda for Tuesday, 23rd of April, 2019, as circulated and mover and seconder. Moved by Councillor Lake, second by Councillor Zingrah. All in favor? Thank you. Any conflicts of interest this evening? Hearing none, I do have a motion here that council hereby adopts the minutes of the regular meeting of council that were held on Monday, April the 8th, 2019. The closed meeting of council were also held on Monday, April the 8th, 2019. A circular amended moved by Councillor Fallon, second by Councillor Lake. Any questions, errors, or omissions on those minutes? Hearing none, I call a question. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. This evening we have a delegation of the Milgang, and I hope I'm pronouncing that right, air cadets from the Squadron 900 here in Marathon. And they're going to do a quick presentation and in regards to the citizenship training program. So the spokesperson is going to come down this evening and give us an overview. And maybe all of you would actually come down to the center so that people at home can actually have a quick view, because you guys all look pretty sharp, and that would be good. And then we'll come down to center, and then we'll get the individual to speak over here, if you don't mind. Right down in the center here and say hi to everybody at home. Come on, don't be shy. Come right into center. Everybody. Then you can look at the camera that way, if you don't mind. Perfect. You watch the TV and you'll all be on there in a second. There we go. Come on in, move in, move in, move in, right in the middle, for sure. Perfect. Good, Lori? Perfect. So everybody say hi to everybody at home? Perfect. Great. Thank you very much. You can all go back up to your seat. That'd be awesome. And then we'll have our spokesperson give us a presentation. Perfect. Thanks a lot. That's good. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Warrant Officer, 2nd Class Matthew Jacklad. I'm here to give you a brief description of your local cadet squadron, the 900 Maigan Royal Canadian Air Cadets. We are here tonight for a portion of our community service training, and it is to attend a town council meeting, so here we are. Our squadron was formed in 1989, making this our 30th training year. Air Cadets is for youth aged 12 to 18 years old. The aim of the cadet program is to develop in youth the attributes of good citizenship and leadership, promote physical fitness, and stimulate interest in youth of the sea, land, and air activities of the Canadian Forces. Our training year runs similar to the school year, from September to June, plus summer training opportunities. Our regular training night is Wednesdays at Holy Savior School from 5:45 to 7:30 p.m. Each week, cadets receive training on various subjects, including drill, aircrew survival, fitness, effective speaking, and flight-related topics such as meteorology, principles of flight, and engines. Throughout the year, we also run weekend survival exercises and additional training competitions. Our squadron competes annually in our region's orienteering, biathlon, marksmanship, and drill competitions. We encourage members of our squadron to participate in the annual effective speaking competition, and Sergeant Leah Morgan has been our most recent competitor in this. Summer training includes aviation, aerospace, fitness, aircrew survival, band, and drill. Gliding and power scholarships are available for eligible senior cadets, which I was lucky enough to attend to last year in Gimli, Manitoba. Our squadron has seen both glider and power pilots in past years. Although we are a smaller squadron, we have seen an increase in cadets, especially in the last year, and we hope to keep recruiting more each and every year. Overall, the Air Cadet movement is an exceptional program for all young Canadians and is a great pathway for Marathon's youth. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Matthew. That was awesome. And I'd like to take the opportunity to thank everybody that came out this evening and shows that you really are interested in the Air Cadet program here at Marathon and showing that it's been running since 1989. That's pretty amazing, right? You know, and very successful. Does anybody have any questions of Matthew? Councillor Lake?
I was just wondering, so it's 12 to 18, you said. Do you need to start at 12 and go all the way through? Or if you're 14, 15 and looking for something to keep you out of trouble, can you join in at that point?
There's no age limit to when you can't start joining as long as you're before 18. So whether you are 12 or 14, 15, as you were mentioning, you can join at any time.
Anybody else? Well, I just want to take the opportunity to thank you for coming out. You're an excellent speaker, so you're doing a really good job in regards to your training and the program you're doing in the Air Cadets, and you did a great presentation, so we wish you much more success within your program. And if you're taking the glider program, I know there's a couple of young men that are going on to be pilots through the program, so hopefully you'll continue that, and maybe someday you'll be flying us around the world in one of those big airplanes, jets. So thanks a lot for coming out this evening, and thank you all for coming down, and especially coming down the center and kind of putting you on the spot and waving to everybody at home. So it's good to see you, and enjoy your program, and hope you all have much success in the program. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thanks for coming out. You're more than welcome to stay to the rest of the council meeting if you like, or you can get up and leave anytime you want as well. Okay, thanks. Okay, right on to student council reports. Councillor Stone, what's happening in the student councillors world now?
There is a presentation coming to our school called Jack's Talk. It's coming to our school on May 6th at 2:10 p.m. It's open to all students, parents, and community members. They'll be discussing mental health issues and how to see the signs and deal with it. And tomorrow, a group of our high school students went down to the NWASA Championship for badminton, which is being held in Thunder Bay.
Great. Anybody have any questions of Councillor Stone? There are none. Hopefully there's some success for going off to those competitions. Moving down to SEER report, the report on 2019 to 2022 corporate strategic plan. Farrell.
So the development of the municipality's new strategic plan began in October 2018 with the completion of an environmental scan and review. Once council was sworn in December of 2018, council and the senior leadership team held a strategy session to set the direction for the new plan as well as define the municipality's vision, mission, values, and strategic directions. Over the course of the first 3 months in 2019, a number of different mediums were utilized to obtain feedback for the plan, which included community stakeholder surveys, focused stakeholder discussions and interviews, departmental focus groups, and additional council and senior leadership team strategy sessions. Administration collected all of the input received through the planning process and prioritized it into a formal plan based on the direction from council. This strategic plan identifies the town of Marathon's goals for the next 4 years with a focus on 5 key areas: quality of life, infrastructure and environment, economic development, organizational and fiscal resiliency, and progressive leadership and collaboration. The goals in the plan are supported by strategies and actions that will ultimately transform them into realities. The plan is not only the town of Marathon's, it is representative of the entire community's hopes and aspirations, as is defined by the plan's namesake, community-driven, Marathon-made. A plan is only as good as the resources in place to support it. To this end, the town of Marathon's senior leadership team will be responsible for developing and putting into action an implementation plan that will set out project leads, milestones, and accomplishments. This will serve to measure the progress of the plan and ultimately its success. Council and the community will be updated on a timely basis regarding the progress of the plan and its initiatives. Financial implications. Projects identified in the plan will be included in yearly municipal budgets as identified. And your recommendation is that administration recommends that council accept the 2019 to 2022 corporate strategic plan as presented.
Good, thank you for that. And I do have a motion here that council hereby adopts the attached report and recommendation 2019 to 2022 corporate strategic plan. And for that 2019 through to 2022 corporate strategic plan be approved as presented this evening. Moved by Councillor Zingra, second by Councillor Lake. Any questions of that report? Councillor Lake.
Yeah, so I think it's visually really appealing, and I appreciate that. It's, for some reason that tickles me. I like that it's a tree. I think it's a nice symbolic sort of thing. I'm trying to recall the discussions around strategic planning. I like that it's sparse and that we're trying to stick to the key points. Are they meant to be read in order that the municipality values them or wants to accomplish them, or is there an organizing principle there?
Yeah, so what council sees in front of them is the community will see this as well, right? This is the 40 initiatives we've identified, which doesn't sound like a lot, but when you think about 4 years and accomplishing 10 of these, these add up to $100 million plus to accomplish these. It's pretty significant. So what senior leadership will do on a yearly basis is prioritize what we're going to accomplish. Some of it based on budgets, some of it based on funding programs available, and we'll set that out on a yearly basis. So the next part of the plan will be in 2019 to identify the projects that we're going to tackle, and we'll do the same in 20, 21, and 22. So those will be reports that will go to council and also the community, but it will be prioritized based on year.
Anything else? Councillor Zingwer?
Just a question on how it'll be shared to the community. So it'll be shared, posted on our website, on social media, and all of that. I'm thinking.
Yeah, so we're in the process of, within the next 2 weeks, we'll launch. This is the formal launch of the plan, assuming council approves it. But there'll be a number of different mediums. So there'll be paper copies available. There'll be more detailed PDFs on our website that'll drill into a little more detail. If people are interested in reading more than just an 8.5 by 11, it'll be available social media, web, and in print as well.
Anything else? Hearing nothing else, I'll call a question. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay, up next, we have a report on 2019 operating capital budgets.
Oh, sorry, Your Worship,
Sorry,
you
oh,
missed,
yeah, wait,
B.
report on council of travel policies.
So at the regular meeting of council on April the 8th, 2019, council directed administration to bring a report back regarding applicable council travel policies. At present, there are no standalone policies that are explicit to council travel. Council travel is governed by policy F3, travel expenses for staff and members of council. This policy outlines how employees and council members will be reimbursed for incurring expenses while traveling on town business. This policy does not include any provision on where and who travels for council. Additionally, there are no current policies that relate to this item. Should council choose to have a policy that is specific to dictating who from council travels to what events, it would have to be created and approved by council. And your administration presents this report for council's information and further direction.
Well, thank you for that. As we recall, Councillor Tabushi, who had wanted this to be brought forward for discussion, is not here this evening. So with council permission, we can either pass it back to another meeting, or we could discuss it and whether or not they want to see a policy created for council's travel for future years going forward, or wait till Councillor Tabushi gets back. Councillor Valence.
I think we should wait for Councillor Tabushi to set respect.
Okay. Everybody else good with that? So we'll put it back on another agenda when all council members are here, because it was Councillor Tabushi who brought it forward. So we'll give him the benefit of having discussion around that. Thanks for that information. Up next, we have administration report on the elimination of the vacancy property tax rebate program. Good evening, Mr. Verbal.
Evening, Mayor and Council. In the fall of 2016, the Minister of Finance announced that municipalities have the option to assume more responsibility and control over the form, structure, and applicability of the current vacant unit rebate program, which currently exists as a rigid prescriptive program under Section 364 of the Municipal Act. On April 9th of this year, the province announced that the educational portion of the vacancy rebate program would be phased out by 2020. Many municipalities in Ontario have eliminated or reduced their vacant rebate programs. The Town of Marathon continues to provide the support to the business community. The program has become easy to administer over the last 2 decades, but the province's announcement of its withdrawal from offering vacancy rebates, this is an opportunity to reduce the cost of writing off property tax and avoids alteration to the town's financial software. Eliminating the vacancy rebate program can also be seen as a means of providing a fairer method of distributing the cost of property tax, since MPACT already provides a discount to assessments that is vacant. The rebate compounds this benefit to those property owners. The municipality must demonstrate that it conducted stakeholder engagement. There were 6 properties that applied and received a rebate for having portions of their buildings vacant in 2018. If council approves the elimination of the program effective for 2019 and subsequent years, the treasurer will include a letter stating so to those property owners who applied for a rebate in 2018. In addition, information on the vacancy rebate will be posted on the town's website, and a letter will be sent to the local Chamber of Commerce. Should any concerns be raised, the property owner will have the opportunity to share this with the treasurer and, if need be, with council. The Ministry of Finance requests that they be notified of any changes to a municipality's use of Section 364 of the Municipal Act by August 1st of this year. In 2019, vacancy rebates for the previous year totaled $10,398 for 6 properties. This amount is included in the 2019 budget. The options are to eliminate the vacancy rebate program effective for 2019 and subsequent years through a council resolution, or continue the rebate program. Administration recommends that option A be selected, whereby the Town of Marathon will notify property owners and the Ministry of Finance that the vacancy property tax rebate program will be eliminated for 2019 and subsequent years.
Thank you for that report. Excuse me, I do have a motion here that council hereby accepts the attached report and recommendation on the elimination of the vacancy property tax rebate program. And whereas under Section 364 of the Municipal Act states that every local municipality shall have a program to provide tax rebates in respect to the vacant portions of commercial and industrial properties. And whereas recent amendments to the section of the Municipal Act have provided the Ontario Minister of Finance with the expanded authority to set locally specific programs, rules via regulation. And whereas the Minister of Finance has invited municipalities to engage in local policy consideration and planning efforts to make submissions to the Ministry of Finance detailing locally indicated reforms to this program. And whereas the Council of the Corporation of Town of Marathon deems it appropriate to eliminate the rebate program set out under Section 364 of the Municipal Act in order to better meet the board objectives of the municipality. Sorry, the broad objectives of the municipality. Now therefore be resolved that the Council of the Corporation of Town of Marathon that the proposed changes detailed in the attached CEO report are to be pursued, and that the municipal staff is hereby directed to prepare and submit a formal request to the Minister of Finance in order to request these changes be made, and that the Minister of Finance be asked to consider and implement these proposed changes so that they come in force as of January 1, 2019. Moved by Councilor Lake, second by Councilor Ingwell. Any questions? Councilor Lake.
So my understanding of the rebate program is if a business has a portion of their business that is no longer in use and it's vacant, then they can get their taxes essentially almost written off.
No,
So the rebate gives you what portion of your taxes back?
30%
So up to 30%.
for commercial and 35 for industrial.
And it's not something that's eligible for homeowners, though, right?
Correct.
So if I owned a couple houses in town, one was that's not a possibility. It's only for commercial and industrial.
Correct.
And then, is it also the case for owners of apartment buildings? Are they eligible for that rebate as well if they have?
No, residential and multi-residentials are not classes that are eligible for this program.
Okay, so then it says we have to do consultation. It's really just through the chamber and through the business community that those consultations need to happen.
Correct.
Okay. Then I think I understand it.
Good. So as stated from the report, there are 6 roughly that are affected in Marathon, so I think it's easy enough to identify those individuals directly through letter, and then with the chamber and those members who want to participate in the chamber, those discussions can be discussed at their meetings.
And
That's
just to clarify, MPAC already, so if you had an assessed value when your business was running and you declare your property vacant, MPAC has already reduced the assessment of that property? So they've already saved
That is,
money there?
they will have an obsolescence or another factor that will say, okay, your building is worth $1 million, but since you're not renting all of it out, we'll reduce it by another 20% or so.
So there is,
They incorporate that.
okay.
Councilor Reynolds?
So then, just for clarification, there's gonna be no benefit to the employers or to the businesses moving forward after this is being essentially taken away.
Can you repeat the question?
It's gonna hinder the businesses in the community if this is taken away from them?
They'll know, those 6 properties that currently have vacancy rebates, and they're the ones that have had it for the majority have had it for the last 20 years. They will no longer receive a tax reduction because of leaving their property empty and not being sold out, or not being rented out.
Okay, thank you.
It's a very tricky situation because you have to have your bylaw officer go and inspect properties as well to see if they're vacant, because a vacant property is a vacant property, right? So if an individual owns a strip mall and there's 2 spots vacant in there, that means they have to be vacant. They can't be utilized as storage facilities and, this and that. They have to be vacant. So the encouragement is to utilize those and get them rented rather than having them empty and getting the rebate. The rebate program was good. It's an opportunity for the municipality to change, and I think we have to move that direction. Councilor Lake?
And so it says this is an Ontario-wide thing. Municipalities kind of locally or that you know of are generally moving in the direction of getting rid of the rebate?
Yes. A substantial amount, I don't have statistics or
Yeah.
whatever. In 2018, quite a few communities they started the phase-in, and so they've gone from 30 to 15 to 0. And we decided not to do that to show that Marathon was conscientious of the difficulties of having a business in Marathon. But this was an easy way of saying, we tried, but we're not going to be the only ones. The province is already reducing this, and so we would just kind of use the province as a scapegoat.
Good.
I just think, and I think I see where Councillor Valence is going around supporting local business. I think we certainly want to do that.
But one thing, sorry,
Yeah.
one thing to realize, those businesses that don't have any vacancies are supporting this rebate.
Well,
And so if you have a vacancy for 20 years, you should be looking at things of maybe reducing your rent to entice businesses to move into your building.
And I think the other thing we've heard from the local business community is encouraging those home-based businesses that look like they're becoming successful to get into storefronts and into
Commercial sector,
properties,
yeah.
because it's certainly, I think, benefits everybody when that happens. So certainly as a municipality and as a council, looking at the chamber, ways that we can support that, right? We want to see all the buildings filled. Obviously, you want to see taxes being paid, people work in storefronts. That's how you grow your local dollars, your local business. So my hope is this will also encourage that sort of reduction in rent and moving people into from houses into buildings.
Okay, anything else? Okay, I'll call a question. All in favor? Carried, thank you. Thank you for that, Chuck. Up next, we have a report on the 2019 municipal operating capital budgets.
The draft 2019 operating capital budget was presented at a special meeting of council on January 21st. Since that time, council's input as well as additional information and details have been incorporated into the budget. The overall objective of the 2019 budget is to maintain the current level of goods and services while keeping any increase to the tax levy to a minimum. This is the third year of phasing in of the 2016 assessments. Properties that had an increase in assessment from January 1st, 2012 will see 1/4 of the increase reflected in the 2019 current value assessment. The overall assessment increased 6%. This increase to the residential class, or 57% of the total assessment, was 6%. The commercial class increased by 8% and the mines only increased by 3%. The budget being presented tonight contains the bundle of programs and services that council has agreed to be delivered to the residents of Marathon during 2019. As listed in Schedule A, operating requirements are $4,065,000. In addition to the bundle of programs and services containing in the current budget, $1,836,000 of capital work is contained in this budget. To pay for these capital projects, $823,500 will have to be generated by taxation. The remaining costs will be funded by government grants and reserves. The province has set the educational levy for the various classes. The combined educational levy to be collected on behalf of the various school boards is estimated to be $451,000. In generating the tax levy of $5,340,000, which is an increase of 1.8% from 2018, the average residential property will incur an increase of $52 over the year. As the tax rate is decreasing by 3.2%, 7% of the properties will receive an average decrease of $21. The implications are outlined in the 2019 current and capital budget. So the options are to approve the budgets as presented or approve the budgets with amendments. Administration recommends that option A be approved and that bylaw 1950 adopting the 2019 operating and capital budget be approved as presented.
Thank you for that report. I do have a motion here that council hereby accepts the attached report and recommendation 2019 operating capital budgets, and further that the appropriate bylaw be adopted later this evening, approving such 2019 operating capital budget. Moved by Councilor Lake, second by Councilor Ingrao. Open for questions and comments. Councilor Lake.
I'll always start just by saying that good job on the budget. I know it's a lot of work for administration, so seeing it come forward. The thing that I guess it's more of a political comment than anything, is in a municipality where the commercial sector and the industrial sector continue to shrink, so much of the burden is moving to the residential class, disproportionately, I would say. And it feels like we increased spending by just over 1%, but it's a 3% increase. And it just feels unfair. It feels, in cities where there's growth, the growth pays for all of that. And it just feels like, and maybe this is a NOMA comment, in small rural municipalities where industry is not successful right now or is struggling, we're just asking more and more residents, and that feels so fundamentally unfair. And I'm not sure, it's not a fix that Marathon can do, is that we do the best with the money that we have. It feels like a provincial fight to say some of that growth that Southern Ontario has, and it's based on the resources we have here in the north, should be coming back so our residents don't have to pay for every increase.
Anything else?
I don't know if that's not a question, but do you know what I mean? And maybe administration looking 10 years down the road.
Property tax is a political thing. Again, 1% is $100,000. That's nothing. And to say that I'm going to build a garage in my house, so now why should I have to, because my assessment gone up higher, why should I pay more for a bylaw officer? Why should I pay more for the airport? Why should I pay for the arena? That is all based on assessment. And again, go back to, there's a lot of publications that say that property tax is not an easy way to generate taxation, and only 9% of all taxes generated in the country go to municipalities. And if you look at a lot of these things, why is property taxes funding an ambulance, for example? That should be a provincial healthcare cost. Why is the municipality or putting fire trucks on highway calls? That should be a Ministry of Transportation call. But again, we can divulge into a whole political conversation on property tax.
Councillor Lake?
Sorry, and you know what? I guess I've just given up the fight on property tax. I think that's the system we have. It's more that as the assessment at the mine shrinks, as commercial seems to shrink, and that's the case across Northwestern Ontario right now, except for maybe Thunder Bay, the people left holding the tax bag are residents. And I just don't know, as we look out, I mean, we have been lucky in that this council fought really hard, and administration as well, to get the reduction of police funding. If we didn't have that reduction right now, we would not be having a budget that had the same goods and services. That's just the facts, right? We've been really lucky that we can give the same service we did last year, this year. But that OPP funding is going to max out. How do we look at the end of our 4-year even strategic plan to say, how are we going to get that shortfall kind of onto the residents? Because we can't be giving 8, 9, 10% increases.
But if you look at pages 3 and 4 of the report, all these services are for residents.
Mm-hmm.
The businesses are not paying for operating a pool. They are not they're not getting benefit from the museum. We subsidize our waste, but all the businesses have to bring the garbage to the landfill, and they pay tipping fees. It's residents want the services, and that's what it costs, unless residents are willing to reduce the services that they get.
Or we grow the business and the industrial class. I mean, that's to me,
And share.
To me, that's the solution. But I mean, I just look at the reality of Northwestern Ontario. How is it that we sort of make clear to the province that this isn't just Marathon's issue, right? This is, I would say, a pan-northern issue about who's paying the burden. And I get what you're saying, that it is residents who do this, but at some point, residents won't be able to afford any of these things.
So some good comments, and we have had opportunity to discuss the budget. I know council will have to look at this and whether or not they approve the bylaw this evening. There's some key points within that budget, and the reality is that we got such disparity within our community itself, where we have two parts of town, one really paying a little of tax, and one side paying a lot of tax. So if that could be equal, though, that would be beneficial to the whole community as a whole. It's not gonna ever get fixed. The assessment on those properties are where they are, and our assessment is basically 3% of your value. So if you have a $100,000 home, you pay $3,000. If you have a $30,000 home, you pay $1,000. So there's the disparity within our own community. we have not cut services in our community. We've cut some hours and operations of some of our facilities, but we have not cut services other than literally the ski hill when the mill went down almost 10 years, 10 years ago already. So the residents have been very successful in regards to the service still provided. Just had the opportunity to go Southern Ontario, Eastern Ontario this past weekend. Our roads are awesome. Anybody can sit here and criticize the potholes in Marathon. Take a ride anywhere else and you'll see. Just drove through Sault Ste. Marie last night and it was like terrible. Like the roads are just disaster. I'm not blaming Sault Ste. Marie. They're doing an awesome job in their own municipality. I'm just using that. So we do a lot of good things for the community. There's some things obviously we can change within that. And the assessed values obviously have gone up in our homes in this side of town. The sales have increased, the assessments have gone up as identified by our treasurer, so those will affect some homeowners. I think there's some things we can look at if council so wishes, is there's opportunities always to go into your general reserves, your reserve accounts, to offset some of those increases once or twice. You don't have to do it every year. Some municipalities do that every year. Some municipalities never do it. We have never done it. We have never taken reserve monies to offset a tax increase. That might be silliness, but there's opportunities there if council so wishes.
We have used reserves before. The prime example was back in 2016 when the replacement of the grader was
Right.
funded by reserves.
But
And the thing is, we have two reserves. We have a capital equipment
Right.
replacement,
Right.
which is just for replacing equipment, and the working capital, which is $2 million, is for the day-to-day stuff. So if you have, I'll just pull out what if Barrick said they're pulling out and they weren't paying their taxes, that's $900,000 that we're not getting in 2019, and that would be your reserves gone in half.
yeah, what I'm getting at, yeah, you're absolutely right. We've used it for equipment purchase, but it's actually offsetting the actual increase in an actual tax levy in a year. That's a consideration council can take a look at. You can still approve this bylaw going forward, direct administration to look at that and see what that looks like. There was one thing I really was interested in the budget that we have, and part of our strategic plan is a $25,000 Penn Lake revitalization. They increased the usage at Penn Lake. That could be considered if we need be to take it from 3.2 to down less. There was also we just talked about the rebate program is another additional $10,000 in revenue potentially.
No.
No, you've already built it in.
No, the vacancy rebates
Yeah.
will stop for the occupancy in 2019. So
Okay.
we've paid $10,000 in 2019
Okay, already.
for the
Okay,
places
so
being
that's not
empty.
new money. Okay,
Yeah.
okay. We did discuss through our capital purchases, the line painting device. I know that was not in the budget as part of the capital purchase. I still like to consider that because that's $25,000 cost to do the line painting. And you're saving money. It takes 3 years to get that money back, but in 3 years, we don't pay any more money out for operating. So those are the kind of things I'd ask the administration to go back and look at and maybe bring us back a consideration for either to reduce the 3.2 to a smaller amount if we change a couple things here and there.
3.2 was only if you wanted to purchase the line painter, right?
That's
So
right.
right now, it's 1.8%.
Right. So,
And a couple things to realize. OMP funding was announced a couple of weeks ago, and it's $66,000 less
Less.
than what we'll be getting
Right.
in the budget, but that hasn't been reflected in the budget.
right.
And also, gas and electricity was forecasted to be up 5%, which is not the $1.46 you're currently having to buy at the gas bar.
Right.
And that's not reflected in the budget. So I just caution you.
So what I'm getting at is when we can have the full details with those in, and this is something that we can approve this budget tonight, or we can look at it when we have the full details, because we don't even have the auditor's report in regards to what 18 looked like.
If you want to use surplus, I would recommend that we pass the budget and get over with, because things will happen tomorrow. and
Absolutely.
all of a sudden, we'll have to change the budget. The budget is just so we can get past this thing and set the tax rates and tell the residents this is how much it is. And
Okay.
if you want funding from surpluses, we can bring a report later on.
Okay, so Darrell's gonna give us something.
So just a couple important points, I think, for council to note and the public as well. So, once council passes the budget, it's not like administration puts it in the drawer and says we're done with it, right?
It's still a
It is our
working
guiding
document,
document
yeah.
along with the strategic plan. So we literally look at it every day. Two other important points. One, taking money out of reserves to fund operating is not a good operating practice, right? It tells you that you have a problem that you can't control. right? So at some point, that will come to a head. So if you can't generate it from the levy, we have to look deeper in
Right.
terms of what we're offering the residences. And I think another important thing to note is the increase that we're proposing administratively doesn't even match the consumer price index increase for Northwestern Ontario. So there's already that gap that's occurring in terms of inflation that we're not budgeting for. So this is an extremely competitive budget for 2019, considering the times that we're in.
So let me clarify my comment about the actual transfer of any dollars from the reserves to operating. No, it was offset the capital purchases within the operating. So you're levying $825,000 for capital purchases. So if we were to reduce that by 100 grand out of a reserve account, then you're not looking at 823, you're looking at 723. So that would impact your overall increase in taxation a lot differently. Okay, Councilor Lake?
So, and then just to clarify, so it's not a 3.2% increase budget, it's a 1.87% increase budget.
Yes.
So under 2, which is, I mean, you're right, given the cost of living going up.
Right.
That's, okay, I misread it as 3.2.
So let's
sorry.
go back to the clarity in what I'm getting in regards to reserve monies and operating and equipment purchases. So if you were to go to 1.8, 1.7, without the line painting device, you took that out of a capital reserve account, you're still looking at that increase, which is reasonable, and the assessed values of the homes going up, most people are not gonna have an issue with that. Is what I'm getting at. So I'm asking administration to look at those opportunities and coming back with what the budget and the actual 2018 operating and capital budget look like in regards to any surpluses or not that was levied in there.
Again, just to clarify though, the surplus, the practice is any operating surplus from the
Goes into
previous year
reserves.
goes into the capital equipment replacement fund.
Right.
The line painter is something we do not have, and so that'd be going different than practice.
New piece of equipment, right?
Yeah.
Not the replacement,
Yeah,
right? So we don't have to create a new practice, we just have to look at year to year what we feel deemed.
just like
Appropriate.
council travel.
Yeah, for sure. Darrell, do you have any more comments?
Oh, just for information for Councillor Valance in terms of, you know, the capital reserves. Council always has the ability to dictate how those reserves are spent.
Okay.
Even though administration will recommend things, it is council's ultimate purview to dictate how those reserves are spent.
Okay. So with that being said, any more comments on that? So I guess basically what I'm asking with council's permission is to look at the purchase of that piece of equipment, how would that affect us? Can we use that out of reserves, bring a report back, this would be the impact? Going with the tax levy of 1.7, 1.8% with a purchase out of capital reserves.
Can we just split it up into two, pass
Sure.
the budget?
Yeah.
And then we'll, if you
That's what I'm
want
saying.
us to
Investigate that.
investigate, we'll find a way to
Thank you.
finance.
Okay, good, good. So we'll pass this budget based on this report. Look at that information going forward. So with the mover and seconders' permission, call a question, all in favor? Carried. Thank you much. Thank you for that report. Good evening, Mr. Hishka. And speaking of budgets and spending money, we have a report on 2019 resurfacing contract award for Hemlo Drive.
Good evening, Your Worship. So yeah, ironically, it's the largest capital item in the budget. It's a report regarding the Hemlo Drive 2019 resurfacing contract award. In accordance with the 2016 to 18 Corbett Strategic Plan, Municipal Infrastructure and Environment, Hemlo Drive at the area outlined below has been identified as due for rehabilitation. Based on Council's top priorities and preliminary financial implications for 2019, Stantec Engineering Limited was instructed to proceed with a detailed design for the project. The construction limits and highlights are as follows. Hemlo Drive at number 86, which is the intersection with Steedman Drive, that's limit 10,885, to Hemlo Drive number 40, that's at limit 11,280, that's 395 meters. Then we skip a piece of Hemlo at the Radisson area, so that we pick up again at Hemlo Drive number 26, which is 11,431, to Hemlo Drive number 10, 11,991, which is 560 meters, plus intersections and driveways. That's 955 meters of 50 millimeter thickness super pave MTO specification asphalt. Installing 11 new floating maintenance holes, access lids, elevation and drainage correction at residential driveway aprons, complete with asphalt, and ditching restored to original design depths and erosion control where necessary. The tendering process closed on April 16th with the following results. J. Provo Contracting Limited came in at 1.4 million, HST excluded. Pioneer Construction, 1.55 million. Bruno's Contracting, 1.3 million. And Belanger Construction, 1.4 million. The town's consulting engineers, Stantec, reviewed the tenders and noted no irregularities. Stantec recommended the contract be awarded to Bruno's Contracting with an expected completion date of August 23 of 2019. The 2019 budget for Hemlo Drive resurfacing is 1.3 million for road and drainage rehabilitation. Bids received were significantly higher than expected due to the recent implementation of the federal carbon tax. Additional funding for the 78,000 over budget amount will come from the federal gas tax one-time top-up fund. So here's a project cost breakdown. The construction is 1.2 million. Contingency was 75,000. Engineering, testing, tendering, and supervision is 60,000. And HST net is 23,800 for a total of $1,378,584. Your options are A, proceed with the Hemlo Drive resurfacing project as presented and enter into a contract with Bruno's Contracting Limited, or B, do not proceed at this time. Your administration recommends option A be selected and that Stantec Consulting be instructed to proceed with contract documents.
Thank you for that report. I do have a motion here, Council hereby accepts the attached report and recommendation on Hemlock Drive 2019 resurfacing contract award, and further that the appropriate bylaw be adopted, enter into the contract with Bruno's Contracting Limited for the Hemlock Drive 2019 resurfacing project. Moved by Councilor Valance, second by Councilor Lake. Questions? Councilor Valance.
Your worship, just for clarification, on the network, the matrix, where was the lifespan of the road right now? Like, wasn't there a funding need versus lifespan of the network itself, and how that all played out? Like, what did it score?
Well, our asset management plan is not completely fully implemented yet, but if it were, based on the score of a Class 3 road versus a Class 4 or 5, so there might be a Class 5 road that's in worse condition that doesn't have near the traffic that Class 3 Hemlo Drive would have, plus the age of the asphalt. The score, I guess we'll probably have the asset management plan fully fleshed out in the next year to 18 months, where future capital projects will be scored that way. But right now, it's based on class of road and the amount of work we put into maintaining it.
Okay.
Traffic going. You know, you're familiar with like Winton and Woodson streets down towards the dock and Cummings Beach and all that? Low traffic, roads are rough, but they're class 5 road with low volume of traffic. Hemlo.
Oh, that makes
That's a scoring.
nothing but sense, right?
Sure, absolutely. So big scoring value there.
I have another question though,
Sure.
Your Worship. Time frame for when the project's gonna start versus be done with? Is it gonna run within the 75th?
It's
Okay.
good, starting at the end of June. Is it during the,
It
No, it's
won't
after.
coincide. It'll be done when the school year's done.
it's after?
Okay.
yeah.
So it'll be July through to the third week of August.
We had some major traffic problems last year, especially with school buses, with that one section of Hemlo we did. So we purposely wanted to be after school buses were parked for the summer this year. We wanted to tender early to get the best value, and we think we did, other than the impact that the carbon tax had. But we want to start later in the season, and we found that contractors are quite amenable to that. They like to have their work lined up later in the season, so they bid aggressively, and it's good timing for them, and it works well for us.
Good. Councilor Lake, you had a question?
I guess I'm going.
Go ahead.
I recognize the names of 3 of the 4. I don't recognize Bruno's. Have we had work done by them before?
We haven't worked with Bruno's before. They've bid on projects. I'm kind of surprised they bid on this one because they do quite large projects for the MTO,
Lot of highway stuff.
on the highways.
Oh, okay.
And they're very big in the region.
Okay, so we're
So,
comfortable with them as?
Yeah, well, our Stantec, our consulting engineers are very comfortable with them.
Okay.
They say we won't have any of the warranty issues that we've ever had in the past. We would have liked to work with somebody maybe more local, but not sure why the prices were where
Yeah.
they fell. So Bruno's was aggressive. Last year, they were the high bidder. This year, they were low. So you just never know. I guess it's based on
Okay.
what their Gantt charts look like.
Yeah.
So just, if I could have 2 clarification points for council. So one, to Councilor Lake's question. So this is a tender, so it's legally binding. So price is what ultimately determines how we award it, as long as they meet all of the requirements we specify, which is much different than a request for a proposal where we control the outcome. This is driven by price, and we have to abide by that. The second, for just Councillor Valence's information, so this project we engineered last year. So what we'll bring forward when we do these projects is we'll come to council likely in the late July timeframe and ask to do the next road we see in terms of asset management, so we can get it engineered while the engineers are on site, so we save that cost going forward. So generally, we choose the infrastructure, the major infrastructure project a year ahead of time.
Good? Councillor Lake?
And then just, again, I think we're all kind of getting our heads around the new carbon tax. Is this the kind of markup we can expect to see on kind of all projects? That's to be $78,000 over budget on something that doesn't appear to improve the project at all. Feels like a bit of a tough pill to swallow.
Yeah, I think we actually expected it to be $200,000 lower, because we were out so early. So we used industry numbers for the units of all the materials, and because we were early, we expected some saving there. But then to find that we were literally $178,000 higher than we expected to be. And everybody at the meetings, everybody at the tender opening was mentioning carbon tax, and
Okay, so is it because, what are they, and again, is it just because they can say carbon tax, so they charge more? Or is there a legitimate expense built into their business now that we didn't have before?
that it probably a bit of both, but asphalt cement is gonna be significantly higher, and fuel.
Daryl?
Yeah, that's the biggest thing. So anything that is carbon intensive, and we're seeing it now. So, a product that traditionally, say, shipped from Thunder Bay for $100, add 4% on it, right? Because that's the federal carbon tax. So anything that has that carbon intensive value, we're already starting to see. And it's not just capital, it's operating. So it's the new it's going to be the new reality of budgeting, is we're going to have to account for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else? Thank you for that report. I call a question. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay, I have a motion here for the check runs. The following check runs be approved for payment. Accounts payable in the amount of $684,013.11 and payable in the amount of $143,470.78. Moved by Councilor Gingross, second by Councilor Lake. Any questions of those check runs? Hearing none, I call a question. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Some bylaws. We have bylaw number 1950 being a bylaw to adopt the estimates and sums required during the year of 2019 to be read first, second time this 23rd day of April 2019. Moved by Councilor Lake, second by Councilor Gingra. Questions on that? Hearing none, I call a question. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Bylaw number 1951 being a bylaw to authorize the corporation of the town of Marathon to enter into agreement with Bruno's Contract Limited for Hemlo Drive resurfacing project to be read first and second time this 23rd day of April 2019. Moved by Councilor Lake, second by Councilor Valance. Any questions of that? Hearing none, I'll call a question. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. And of course, those two bylaws be read a third time. That bylaw number 1950 and 1951 be read a third time and finally passed this 23rd day of April 2019. Moved by Councilor Lake, second by Councilor Gingra. Any questions on the third reading? Hearing none. Oh, Councilor Lake.
That's, why do we have to read a bylaw 3 times so that it gets passed?
Daryl.
That is a good question.
Well, I think under the act, it requires that there is, if there's some variances or some difference in the first and second reading, gives the opportunity for that to be brought forward for the third reading to be either squashed or revisited or tabled. So there's opportunities, and I'm not 100% correct on all that, but that's, I think, is
That is correct. It's for the public process.
Right.
Okay.
There are some municipalities that actually don't do 3 readings. They only do, some do 1, some do 2.
Okay.
In our case, we've always had 3, and that's what it is, so that there's always the opportunity for council to input into the process to change the bylaw. So it's part of the public transparency process.
Thank you.
Good, thank you for that. Okay, with that being said, all in favor for the third reading of the bylaws? Thank you, carried.
And your worship, you skipped over 11B,
Oh, did I?
Councillor Valance?
Oh, sorry. I didn't flip my sheet, sorry about that. Councillor Valance. Councillor Valance is going to give us an update on the verbal report of the Chamber of Commerce.
Perfect. I'll keep it short. So I can successfully announce that through the 5th annual Chamber of Commerce District Business Awards, there was 59 nominees who were delivered packages as businesses, entrepreneurs, and volunteers to be celebrated this year, depending on who let their nomination stand or change their nomination if they seem fit in doing so. 59 people should be celebrated at this year's event. So how it works right now is it gets turned onto the nominees, and the nominees themselves have to fill out a package declaring as to why they think there's a criteria for them to fill out, and then submit back to the chamber for the grading and the matrix of choosing the winner. They have until, I believe it is May 3rd, to submit that back to Dana, the president of the Chamber of Commerce, either by email or at Spadoni Motors. So that's that.
Good, thank you for that, and sorry for skipping by you there in a big hurry. I was trying to get home and watch the game. As Councillor Lake wears his proudly pleasured Is there a score already? Oh, it's terrible, isn't it? Yeah. So with that being said, I do have a motion here from a resolution from the municipality of Minto seeking support of their resolution pertaining to the funding. And further, that a copy of this motion be forwarded to the individual listed on the originating resolution. So I need to move a second to put it on the floor. Councillor Lakes, Councillor Valance, any questions of this resolution? So NOMA, I am the actual, through NOMA, the funding, I'm the information gatherer, and I'm the guy who brings the concerns to AMO now in regards to funding. Everybody's in the same situation in regards to the allocations being reduced. We've asked the Government of Ontario to maintain the 90% of the previous year scenario so that we're all going to be aware of what those are. They said they put the brakes on literally of the funding to get a review of 2020 to see where we're at, and hopefully we can have success through the AMO conference coming up in August to have more dialogue with the provincial government on the funding. So with that being said, I mean, we fully support the municipality of Minto. Just like Marathon, we heard from our treasurer of the $65,000 reduction in our funding. So we're all being impacted at that, but those are things that have to be looked at in the bigger scheme of things for the provincial and municipal governments to work together and fund our different projects and programs. So, moved by Councillor Lake, second by Councillor Valance, that we do support the resolution from the municipality of Minto. All in favor? Carried, thank you. And prior to adjournment, we will be going into an in-camera meeting to discuss personnel matters about identifiable individual and or including a municipal, local, and board employee. That's directly following this public meeting. So with that being said, I do have a motion here to adjourn at the hour of 7:55 p.m. Moved by Councillor Valance, second by Councillor Lake. Thank you, and have a good night. Thank you very much for the Air Cadets sticking around, listening to that council presentation.